We're talking about how to start an LLC in Oklahoma, and what you can see back here is a checklist that we're going to use to guide us through this process. And specifically, we're going to get into this part of the checklist here. But before we do that, what I want to do is talk about the LLC dumpster fire. Now, what that is you get your LLC set up, but you're not familiar with terms such as piercing the corporate veil, commingling funds, registered agents, pass-through taxation, how the LLC renewal process works, and you're not also familiar with things such as business licenses and permits. If you're not familiar with all of these terms, you will by the end of this video series. And what it's going to do is allow you to not only set up your LLC, but to properly maintain it over time so it does what it's supposed to do for you, which is protect and limit your liability. Now, to better explain this, what I want to do is talk about what an LLC actually does for your business. So we're going to zoom out for a minute so that we can zoom in and make sure that you get your LLC set up correctly. So why don't we open up this right here, and we're going to talk about the fact that an LLC offers limited liability protection, and it also offers pass-through taxation. To better explain this, why don't we go through the example of owning a coffee shop, all right? But in this example, we're going to be talking about owning a coffee shop without an LLC. Here's what it looks like. You have the business owner in the center, and then you have their personal home, personal car, and personal bank account on the left side. But on the right-hand side, we have the coffee shop, the point of sale, the business bank account, the espresso machine, the lights. Everything is connected right back to that business owner, which creates a lot of liability. But if you own an LLC that owns a coffee shop, it looks very different. What you have here is the business owner on the left-hand side with their personal assets, and on the right-hand side, we're calling it the Acme Coffee LLC, and the LLC has all those assets underneath it. What's important here is that red division line in the middle. That is something called the corporate veil. Now, if you recall from the beginning of the video, we're talking about piercing the corporate veil, and we're going to explain that through a term called commingling funds. So we're going to explain both of these things right now. Let's say that that business owner doesn't open up a business bank account right away when they have this LLC, so they're commingling funds inside of their personal bank account. So they have personal transactions and business transactions happening in this bank account over here. What could happen is, in the unfortunate case, if you were to be sued, the attorney suing you is going to try to find cracks in your LLC. If they can prove to the judge that you're commingling funds, the judge may agree and then allow them to pierce the corporate veil. What that is this division in between your business and personal assets dissolves so that they're able to go after your business assets and your personal assets. So that's why it's important to not only set up the LLC, but to understand what it does and then know how you can properly maintain it. So make sure that you get that business bank account set up right away so that you can differentiate your transactions between a personal and business bank account. Now, what I want to talk about is an explanation of pass-through taxation. So a lot of people get confused over taxation of LLCs. It's actually pretty simple, and this is going to explain it right here. You have Acme Coffee LLC. It grossed $140,000, and you had $90,000 of expenses. That would be a net income of $50,000. The IRS is not taxing the LLC. That $50,000 of net income passes through. Sometimes this is called a flow-through taxation. So if you hear pass-through or flow-through taxation, same thing, but it's passing or flowing through to the business owner, and the IRS is taxing the business owner. Sometimes people think there's like a tax incentive for getting an LLC set up. There's not. You can have tax expenses or business expenses if you have a sole proprietorship or a DBA, but where there is some tax advantages is later down the line, once you start netting $40,000 to $50,000 net income, you can do something that's applying an S-Corp designation to your LLC. Just know that your LLC is flexible. Down the line, you can choose to have it taxed as an S-Corp election, and that can help you on tax savings. But that's something we're going to get to in video 3 of this series. But I just want to make you aware of these things because, again, it's not just about getting your LLC set up. It's about knowing how to optimize your process as your business starts to grow and different things that are afforded to you when you own an LLC. So what I want to talk about now, though, is this checklist for starting your LLC. Now that we have more of a zoomed out picture, we're going to zoom in a little bit. First things first, you can get this checklist for yourself. It's a Notion document. It's a living, breathing document. It's free for you. There's a QR code on the screen that you can scan, but there's also a link in the description below. And some of the cool stuff about this here is you have the glossary of terms here. There's a bunch of different terms as related to setting up your LLC that can be pretty helpful for you. But there's also the bonuses section. There's an AI chatbot here. So you can do stuff like how to start an LLC in Oklahoma, and this chatbot will create a detailed list specific to your state of how to get an LLC set up. So you can also do things like how do I register an EIN? We're going to explain that in a little bit, but you can even use this for brainstorming business names for your LLC, which we're going to talk about. But you also see that there's other opportunities here. The yearly accounting calendar, which we're going to get to in the next video, super helpful for just understanding the important accounting dates after you get your LLC formed. So definitely get this checklist here for you because it'll make things a lot easier and more streamlined for you. What we're going to talk about briefly right now is deciding on which route you want to go to set up your LLC. You can go through the Oklahoma State website. That's with the Secretary of State. And when you do that, you can actually do a physical mail-in of the Articles of Organization, which we'll explain in a second, or you can do it through the online portal. So there's the state website, but then there's also online legal tools. There's a lot of them. These LLC services, most of them now have $0 plus state fee to get started, but then they have upsells that can bring you up into their middle or higher tier packages. The pros and cons there are that it can cost a little bit more, but there's also more features and things that can help you get up and running faster. And then you can also go through a business attorney. I'm actually going to write on here because I want this to say business attorney specifically. This can be helpful if you have a very complex situation. You have a lot of partners. You think there's a lot of inherent liability in your industry. You may want to go through a business attorney. For the purpose of this video, we're going to go through the state website and we're going to show you how you can get set up through that. But in the next video, we're going to deep dive on how you can decide which one of these paths is right for you. Now, what we need to do, though, is decide on a business name for your LLC. What I'll say here is that the actual name of the LLC is not that important. And what I mean is you don't have to have the perfect name because you can have a brand name that exists as a fictitious business name or a DBA, doing business as, underneath the LLC. You can remember we called it Acme Coffee LLC, which is a terrible name for a business. Well, you could have a DBA such as like Espresso Yourself Cafe that is the brand name underneath that LLC. What is important is that you have to have a unique name for your LLC that is not already taken by another business in Oklahoma. So what you can do here is there's search availability of your business name. There's a state directory list here, and we're going to scroll down to Oklahoma. And then what we're going to do is we're going to show you what this database looks like. So on this page, this is the Oklahoma Secretary of State website. And this is a great example of how state sites aren't the greatest. It's actually not working right now. So I wanted to show you the example of like, what does it look like when you search Sooners on here? But I'm getting this connection was reset. So if you get something like this, obviously, you know, the typical stuff, you can try a incognito window and then see if that works. But these are some of the issues that you kind of run into on the state websites. But as you can see, I'm still running into this issue, unfortunately. Now, if you go through the online legal tools, they will do the search for you as well. But this is an example of where I wanted to show you what it looks like on the state site, but the state site's not working. But what you want to see is when you put in your information here, you want to see that there are no results found. Once you have that set up and you're going in to get your LLC set up, you'll now know that you have a unique LLC name. Now, the first couple things on here I want to talk about is these first three. Registering your LLC name, writing your articles of organization, and assigning a registered agent. Now, when it comes to writing your articles of organization, that's the actual document that you will fill out and submit to the state that is going to form your LLC. When you register your LLC name, that is simply just getting the name and making sure that you have registered it for yourself. It's kind of like getting the domain name, but not building the actual website out. You're just securing that name. So what you really need to do, though, is go here and click on the state directory list again. There's this bullet point list of what goes into the Articles of Organization, but we're specifically going to take a look at Oklahoma and see what the actual PDF looks like itself. So a couple things here. You'll see that there is a $100 state filing fee right here in number 2. You're not going to get around that $100 filing fee. That's as of 2024 of making this video. It may be more in the future, but if you go through the state website, online legal tools, or business attorney, you're going to pay a $100 filing fee to the Secretary of State to get your Articles of Organization set up. Then when we scroll down a little bit here, why don't we take a look at a couple items. Number 1 is you just put your name. That is the unique name that you have found. Number 2 is the street address of its principal place of business, wherever located. And then 3, the name and street address of the resident agent in the state of Oklahoma. So in Oklahoma, they call it a resident agent, and in many other states, it's called a registered agent. But what that resident agent does is they handle important documentation and communication for your business. Now, there's a few rules around this. They have to have a physical mailing address in the state of Oklahoma, and it cannot be a P.O. box. And yes, you have to have a resident agent on file. Now, what they do is, let's say you're being sued, you're going to get what's called a service of process notice. They will make sure that you get that notice and that you're showing up to court with the proper documents that you need. when you're going through that process. So a resident agent is very important. And one of the bummers here is that the state website doesn't really help you out with suggestions for it. They just say, who is it? When you go through online legal tools, they partner with resident agent services so that you can get a professional to handle this for you. And one of them in particular actually provides you that service for free for the first year. And again, in the next video in the series, we're going to deep dive on that and how you can save money going that route. But then term of existence, most people are going to put perpetual in here because you're opening this up because you're planning on having a business ongoing, and it's not something where you just need an LLC for 1 year. And then articles of organization must be signed at least by one person, not the member of the limited liability company. So you can get a witness there to sign that. So then once you have this, what you're going to do is you would mail this actual document in to the state of Oklahoma, and they have that address right here. Address is Secretary of State in Section 3 and who you'd make the checks payable to. You can also go through their online portal to do this. But again, a lot of people are going to go online. They're not going to actually fill out the PDF, but I wanted to show you different aspects of it as we're going through. So once you file that and send it into the Secretary of State, one thing you may want to consider is creating an LLC operating agreement. This is a situation where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You do not need an LLC operating agreement in the state of Oklahoma to get set up, but it's a great idea. Now, let's say that you had a business partner in that coffee shop and you have like 29 locations, and then one day that partner wants out of the business. How do you handle that situation? Well, if you had an operating agreement, it may already present who the members are, what their roles and responsibilities are, and what happens if somebody wants out of the business. When it's already detailed like that up front, then it's very easy to move forward. But if it's not, then you may get into a lengthy legal battle with lots of litigation. It may cost you tens of thousands of dollars just to figure out what the value of this business is for your partner that's exiting. So again, great idea to get an LLC operating agreement in place day one. The state website is not going to help you with this. If you go through online legal tools, they'll have a boilerplate template you can use. And if you go through a business attorney, they'll really dial it into your specific needs. Just depends on what your budget is and what you want to shell out in terms of cash to be able to set up that LLC operating agreement. Then what I want to talk about next is after LLC formation. So one thing you want to consider doing is setting up an EIN. There's an IRS link here. This is completely free to do. And what an EIN is, an employment identification number. It is like a social security number for your business, and it allows the IRS to identify it. But if you're going to have employees on payroll, you need an EIN set up to do that. Also, if you're applying for things such as like business insurance or maybe like a physical retail location for an office space, being able to put your EIN on the form looks a lot more professional than putting your social security number on there. So highly suggest you get this set up right away. It's free to do through the IRS website. If you're using some of those online legal tools, they will do this for you for an additional fee, usually in their mid-tier packages. But there's a couple different ways you can get that set up. But this will walk you through this completely on how to do this. Next, I want to talk about obtaining necessary business licenses and permits for your LLC. Now, there is an SBA resource here. If you scroll down and then you put in Oklahoma, this is going to give you additional information and resources here, and you can actually select a region as well. But what I would say for this is just giving you an example of opening up a brewery. When you open up a brewery, you are going to be brewing beer, distributing beer, and also serving beer. Those three things may require different licenses and permits, and those can happen on the federal, state, and local level. So what you can do is you can look up what your town or city clerk is called, right? And you can give them a call and say, hey, I'm opening up XYZ business. I'm just curious what licenses and permits I need on the town or city level, and then also if there's any on the county level. They may be able to direct you to resources on the state level as well, or you can go on the state website. And then again, you can Google if there's anything needed on the federal level. Now, the LLC services, those online tools, they will do this for you for an additional fee if you're nervous that you may be missing something. But it's just a common mistake that people get their LLC set up and they don't realize like, oh, I have a chiropractic firm or I'm opening up a dental practice or a construction company. Well, there's additional licenses and permits that may be needed for those businesses, but not every business needs these. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Now, what we're going to be talking about in the next video, and this is really important, and I'm glad you're still watching at this point, because we're going to get into the fees associated with setting up your LLC as far as maintaining it. I won't scroll down here, but we have a custom calculator built that will show you down to the dollar what it will cost for you to get your LLC set up for 5 years, including maintaining it. Then we also have these star ratings. We're going to explain how these work and when you're comparing these different options for you to move forward. We're going to talk about why the state website can become a pain, and that has specifically to do with domestic versus foreign LLC. So if you're not familiar with those terms, we're going to explain that in the next video. And we're also going to deep dive on questions worth asking about which path is the right path for your needs. So I'm going to catch you in this next video. And again, I highly suggest that you get this free document for yourself. There'll be a link in the description below so you can follow along. And in the next video, we'll make sure that you're not overpaying by $1,500 so that you know specifically what the LLC is going to cost you for those first 5 years. All right, we'll catch you in the next video.